Alright everyone, let's get straight into it. I'm having a tough time seeing Sean Strickland reclaiming the UFC middleweight title this February. Now, don't get me wrong, the guy is undeniably talented. I mean, he made Israel Adesanya look like an amateur. You see, Sean's win over Izzy was all about keeping it simple and staying disciplined. He kept the pressure on, forcing Izzy to fight off his back foot and totally throw him off game. Izzy at his best was when he was setting traps and picking shots, but Sean didn't give him that space to do that. He just stayed in the fence, peppering him with jabs, and shut down most of Izzy's attacks with solid defense. And that first round knockdown? That wasn't just a highlight, it set the tone. After that, Izzy looked hesitant, like someone spoiled the ending of his favorite show. Sean shut down the kicks, controlled the distance, and made Izzy look completely out of sort. Then you got the fight with Nasruddin Imavov. It wasn't just flashy, but it was a vintage Strickland performance. You know, constant pressure, high volume, durability for days. Imavov had his moments, early landing clean shots, but Sean just shrugged them off like, is that all you got? And then his cardio held up and he walked Imavov down for 5 rounds, jabbing and landing straight punches that kept him in control. It was gritty, not pretty, but it was effective. So why am I skeptical about Sean getting the belt back? Here's the thing. Sean's style works great when he's the one that's dictating the pace, but we've seen what happens when he gets pushed back. He loses to Jared Cannonier and Dricus du Plessis. Those two are prime examples. Both those guys impose their will, landing heavy shots and forcing Sean to fight on the back foot. And here's the harsh reality. Sean's punches don't pack much power. Sure, he can jab you into oblivion, but when the judges see his opponents landing 1 or 2 big shots that visibly hurt him, they're going to favor the damage. Why? Because in the UFC, damage trumps everything in scoring. It's not that Sean isn't landing or doing well, it's that his work doesn't have the same visual impact against guys like Jared Cannonier or Dricus du Plessis who can push him back and make those few big shots count. Sean's volume striking just doesn't carry the same weight in the judges' eyes. It's not fair, I'll admit that, but it's the reality of the scoring system. Unless Sean can completely dominate or adjust his style to pack more power, he's going to struggle against those pressure fighters. So yeah, Sean's a damn good fighter, no doubt about it, but if he wants that belt back, he's got to either put on a near perfect performance or somehow make the judges believe his punches are actually doing some serious damage, not just adding up some points. The thing is, Sean's not known for his power, he's more of a decision type of guy, and if he's not completely controlling the fight like he did against Imavov or Izzy, it's probably going to end up being a super close decision. Now think about it, man. Sean vs. Costa wasn't even close. Sure, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but Sean was in control the whole time. One judge had it 50-45, another had it 49-46 for Strickland, and somehow one judge gave Costa a 49-46, which is just baffling. Now take the Dricus fight, same story, Dricus landed the bigger, harder shots, and that's why he tipped the scales. Then there's the Jared Cannonier, another fight that could have gone either way and didn't swing in Sean's favor. Even his fight with Jack Hermanson was one of those nail biters where you were just waiting to see how the judges called it. When Sean isn't dominating outright, he's stuck playing the judging game, and and that's always a gamble. The problem is when it comes down to those tight fights, Sean's volume and pressure don't always stand out. The guy landing the big flashy shot is gonna catch the judge's attention more than the guy who's just jabbing and staying busy. Unless Sean can either up his power or completely smother his opponents like he did with Izzy, he's going to keep ending up in these frustrating close decisions, and honestly, that's not where you want to be if you're trying to hold on to the belt in this division. And here's the thing I've noticed about Sean Strickland, man. When you pressure him, his defense has some pretty clear holes that fighters can exploit to land those big shots and to win the round. The standout issue with Sean's style is how his defensive habits expose some flaws. He tends to lean back or to his side to avoid punches and relies heavily on his arms to block or parry. While they can work to avoid getting hit, it often puts him so far out of position that he can't take advantage of his opponents being off balance or out of position themselves. In contrast, someone like Ilia Topuria, another elite fighter with a boxing heavy style, makes small calculated defensive adjustments. Topuria remains balanced, staying enraged to counter quickly when an opportunity presents itself. Strickland, however, is defense first, resets, and only then attacks, which often allows his opponents time to recover and reset as well. This approach creates problems in longer fights. Fighters who can match Strickland's cardio and output can overwhelm him with his consistent pressure. He spends so much time defending that he struggles to find openings for his own offense. This is how Jared Cannonier and Dricus Du Plessis were able to exploit him, by staying aggressive and forcing him to remain in a defensive shell for an extended period. And that's a huge issue for Strickland, is his vulnerability when he's forced to fight on the back foot. His style thrives on forward pressure, controlling the center of the cage, and using his jab to disturb his opponent's rhythm. When his opponents push him backwards, his jab becomes ineffective and his defensive movements become predictable. He doesn't use lateral movements or angles effectively to escape pressure. I think one way Strickland can address these weaknesses is by developing a strong clinch game with his frame and cardio. He's well suited to incorporate knees to the body and elbows in a closer range. You see, having a strong clinch game would be a game changer for Strickland. It would force opponents to think twice about rushing in, giving him more control over the range and letting him dictate the pace of the fight. All of that combined really creates a lot of problems for Sean, and it's one of the reasons why I don't think he can beat Dricus. Now, don't get me wrong, Sean can absolutely jab his face off all night, maybe mix in some teeps too to keep the range and frustrate Dricus with his volume. But here's the thing, I feel like Dricus would find a way to land the harder, more impactful shots, especially to the body. And that's where Sean's style can really hurt him. He doesn't have the same ability to adjust mid-fight and punish his opponents when they're overreaching or making mistakes. Dricus is the kind of fighter who thrives on chaos. He's not perfect, but he's explosive and can absorb a lot of shots to deliver something devastating in return. Sean's defense might hold up for a while, but if Dricus can make it a physical fight, I think the harder, more damage shots will sway things in his favor. Sean's cardio and volume gives him a path to victory, but against someone like Dricus, who's tough, unorthodox, and willing to take risks, it feels like Sean's lack of fight-ending weapons and an ability to counter effectively could cost him in the long run. Dricus doesn't have to outpoint him, he just has to hurt him enough to shift the momentum, and that's a real possibility here. I mean, even Sean's coaches have been saying the same thing. His style is effective, but it's tough to really get ahead on the scorecards when all you're doing is jabbing and throwing some teeps. The scoring criteria in MMA rewards big, impactful moments, and that's just not Sean's game. He's all about volume, control, and wearing his opponents down over time. But that doesn't always translate into the judges giving him the nod in close fights. And that's just the problem with Sean's style. And look, I'm not going to completely trash Sean's style like some people do. It's still effective. It's just a harder style to make work consistently, especially at the highest level. Let's be real, Sean's not the guy who's going to go out there and flatline someone with one punch. He's most likely grinding out decisions with his volume and pressure. I mean, the last finish I can remember from him was probably against Abus Magomedov, and even that was more about wearing the guy down than landing some fight-ending bomb. Who knows though, maybe Sean's next fight ends up being way closer than people think, and judges actually score it in his favor this time. I mean, at the end of the day, it's MMA and anything can happen, so styles make fights. Guess we'll just have to wait and see if I'm spot on or totally off the mark. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.